G'day, mate. Welcome to Friday Facts 335 scenario changes, damage, and damage and effect filtering. And I have a filtered Mojo with me today. Hey, mate.
Hello. The filter says greetings.
Oh, filter says greetings. No, that's Madzuri. There we go. Team production changes. So, actually, no. Let's start this Friday Facts with. I don't know what to think about most of this Friday Facts. Okay, I've read through it. There are some changes. A lot of them are minor. I don't know where to start. So,
We start from the top.
yeah, we start from the top. That's where we're going to start. So, team production changes. So, improving the team production challenge was prompted by this Reddit post, which is over here, which was only posted like 2 weeks ago. And it was made back in 2016 to test the multiplayer networking of the 14 update with a large number of players without the overhead of having a large factory. Since then, it's really not had much love. I don't think it's had any love, to be honest. I think maybe it's had bug fixes, but that's about it. So yeah, after 4 years of curing wisdom, I started making some great improvements. And this is by Clonan. So Clonan's the community manager. He's also, I think he's got, of all the devs, him and Bilka tend to have a lot of mods on the mod portal.
He's the scenario guy. He churns out probably the most scenarios out of all of them. In fact, I think he's the only one who churns out scenarios out of all of them.
Yeah, I think so. But yeah, so the changes to the team production challenge, and Mojo, you're probably better to run through. What is the team production challenge? Because I don't think I've done it.
So it's a little. It's like a 30 minute production challenge where you're given a small patch of land which is identical to everyone else's, and it's either you versus another group or multiple people versus others, usually 2v2v2v2 or something like that. And it gives you a random goal that you have to produce towards like 200 electric engines or something, and then like 50 copper cake, and then it gives you the inputs for it at the top, and then actually I think I can't remember now. It's been a few years since I've actually done it now, but it gives you like a chest with some source raw materials. You get some patches of like iron and copper and coal, and it gives you some random starting machinery. And yeah, it's just whoever produces a more completes the goal first wins that round, and it just goes on forever.
Yeah, so it's really like a small puzzle to solve, and the idea is they're meant to be able to done quickly in a short period of time. If anybody's played mobile games, you've probably got like many mobile games that have the daily puzzle to force people to log in every day and look at the silly puzzles. And this was, I don't know, Factorio's sort of attempt, and I've looked at it. It didn't make a lot of sense. I went back and looked at it a second time. It's not much fun to play single player. There have been...
Yeah, you need like 4 people at least.
Yeah, there have been a couple of I call mods. You have to get them from the mod portal, but they're basically a scenario that have done similar things to the production challenges. And they were more based on not creating, 200 engines or whatever. It was like creating 200 green circuits per minute on this limited lab space. So you had unlimited inputs, but you had to get a production per second goal. And I looked at that a while back, and some of them were really easy. Some of them were like, you were space confined, so you really had to push.
You really had to work.
Yeah, you had to really think outside the box and like how to, belt braid or side load or do a lot of the tricks that a lot of people forget nowadays, I guess. Because Factorio, it's just got to this stage where, like back in the early days, because the butters were so close, you had to be really confined with your early base, and you used a lot of belt tricks that nowadays just people don't bother, don't know about, have forgotten about, because there's just no need. There's always more space to be found.
Either that, or you just ignore the biters and use all the space that you need.
Yeah. So the first changes, there was choose your own teams, and normally you'd think about adding a GUI for this, and Clonan decided against that, mainly because GUIs are a pain in the ass, to be honest.
Yeah, so it was probably the easy answer.
Yeah, so he went with an easy answer, which which I sort of like. So in the past, people just got shoved on a team, and it was all random, and you might end up with your best friend or your worst enemy, who knows. Now you actually get this lovely grid when you join into the game, and you can walk on a different piece of coloured concrete to choose your team, which I really, really like. I'm really hoping it auto changes the colour of the character when they step onto that concrete. I hope that's automated somewhere in the scenario code.
Probably is.
It probably is. And he did mention that rather than making custom... Well, originally he'd just done it with a custom tint on tiles. So, grass, for argument's sake, which didn't work terribly well. And then Albert suggested just tinting a square of concrete. Which means technically we have coloured concrete now. It's only available in the editor mode, and you were saying, Mojo...
I reckon it's possible to change it with a console command. Is it like existing concrete or... I really can't speak today.
No, you're doing well.
Or spawn in new concrete, which has the colour.
Yeah. And I was like, why bother? And then you pointed out, green for your uranium.
Green for nuclear.
Yeah.
And then a nice red for your railway crossing.
I'm thinking yellow for railway and red for the front line.
Or red for the front line. I still stand by red for the railway crossing.
No, but yellow's more of the caution sign. Like, caution, watch your step, yellow and black tape. And then you don't watch your step anyway, and bang, train.
Yeah, that's why it's red.
Yeah.
It's been painted red. Train.
Repeated train crossings. Yep. So, I like the idea of the tinted concrete, now that Mojo's pointed out that. Unfortunately, in theory, we can't access it, but it probably means that within 24 hours, you'll probably find...
it, 24 hours to 3-4 days.
Yeah, look, they say down the bottom that they're expecting this to be released on Tuesday, so you could probably expect by Wednesday you're going to find a mod out there that lets you tint the concrete. And
yes,
it's a tint, so it's going to be UPS free and resource free and...
as many colours as you want, too.
Yeah, which is probably going to lead to some weird... It's going to, within a week, then lead to... I made this on Reddit with some coloured, like, RGB vomit from an inside of a computer, or I made a giant assembler, the picture of a giant assembler out of tinted concrete. It's going to lead to something like that. The picture of a biter. It's going to be a picture of a biter or a train.
Or a anime waifu type thing.
Yeah, it could be that too. So there's going to be something. There's always going to be something. So yeah, first thing he did, added a not GUI to the scenario so you could actually choose your teams, which is probably far overdue. Because I do remember, was it Clowntown that did the production challenge?
He did it for a while, yeah. Everyone's gone through a cycle of it. Anti-Elites did it as well. He was... Because there actually used to be an active official production challenge server that they ran, and Andy-Elites basically lived there for like a month.
Oh, wow. Okay. There you go. I missed that one. So, first thing he did was clean up the non-team... Choose your team GUI. He then did a general cleanup of the code, because it has not had any love in a long time. And I do remember it was one of the scenarios used loaders. So we swapped all those out to stack inserters because loaders are banned in Factorio. Also made the challenges more predictable. The logic before give you a lot of variance to the difficulty of the production objectives and making things hard to balance. One problem I see in the future, the production challenges are hard-coded for the base game. If I find some more time later on, I might work on a system to procedurally create the objectives, which I like that idea, because I'm trying to think, is it the one Colonel Will's done to death? And
the other one, the supply challenge.
Yeah, the supply challenge, where he's got a pre-made blueprint and it's done in some ridiculous amount of time, like 20 minutes, 30 minutes?
I think it was like 40, because it used to be able to do it quicker, and then the map was redone.
Yeah, so it's one of those things, like, it just comes down to, once you've mastered it, that's it. There's no, like, you're talking about skimming seconds off a 40-minute time. It's not worth it. Which brings us on to the wave defense. So Clonan says he was inspired by some comments a few weeks ago, saying the wave defense scenarios were a bit of a pushover, especially with a couple of players working together. So I thought an easy adjustment would be scale the wave power somehow to the number of players. It was a simple change, and we released it with in 18.4 a few weeks ago, and it was a good one, right? Well, I remember mentioning the wave defense that we did when 18 dropped.
Talked about it a few times
recently,
and a few things have happened.
Yeah, I was thoroughly disappointed, and I said I have no interest in testing it out in 18.4 because I don't think it could be improved. And it turns out after he playtested it wasn't improved. So he gave more biters, which meant more money. The main problem with...
More money.
Yeah, players earn bounty from every biter killed in the world. So if he makes the waves bigger, the players earn so much more money and can buy so many more upgrades that the scenario is even less challenging than it was before, or where it already wasn't challenging. So
I believe that's what happened to Will. He played it because Will played it recently, and I remember he was just pumping through upgrades.
Yeah, look, it's if you get enough players, you can just go out and exterminate the spawners and the worms like really, really, really quickly. And I know Clonan's changed it. We're going to go through all those, but I don't think it's going to work. So yeah, the more biters you kill, the more money you got, the more upgrades you got. Like any tower defense or wave defense. So that makes sense up until this point. Then he just removed the bounty from the units. And it makes the design work better in his eyes. Bounties only earned from spawners and worms, and you can't sit inside your wall and earn money for upgrades. You need to actively go out of your base to earn upgrades. In the past, players could set up infinite money farms by spawn camping the biters. This is no longer possible. The problem is, the whole point of a wave defense is to survive infinite waves.
Infinite waves, yeah. I think that's where things are going wrong, is it's really just a spin on the standard Factorio formula. It's not trying to, like... I remember the original wave defense was an actual tower defense map, where there were no biters on the map, no spawners on the map.
No, the biters magicked in the top right-hand corner. You started in the bottom left-hand corner.
Yeah, that's right.
It was a pre-made map. You'd have a bit of oil, a bit of stone, bit of everything to get you up and started, and you had to push forward. And I gotta say, originally when I first played it, it was really hard. We'd die by wave, I don't know, 10, 20, like multiple times.
Sounds about right.
In the end, after like I think the third run through it, like we had a basic idea of what we were doing, and we'd make a little bit more progress each time. We'd do a little bit better, which is really what tower defense is about, to sort of learn where the attacks are going to come from, learn how to just make those little increment progresses, and yeah, get a little bit further each time. And then we got oil, and I was smart, and I put down flamethrowers, which we had to really push forward. It was like you're either going to get flamethrowers and everything's going to be fine, or you're going to die just before you get the damn thing crafted, and you need to go faster. And we got flamethrowers up and running, and then from there on, the whole thing was a laughing joke, and we literally just pushed the flamethrower turrets forward. Just,
yeah.
Underground pipe, forward 10 tiles, whatever it is.
10
put down,
tiles, something like that.
Put down more
waves.
flamethrowers, yep. During the waves.
No, just during the waves.
Yeah,
Don't worry about waiting for the wave.
Yeah, no, just run out and just do it. Because as soon as they're down, like, we were being smart about this. We weren't leaving gaps between the flamethrower turrets. It was pipe, flamethrower turrets. And they just, like, side to side, connected all the way up. And they're good to go. And, yeah, it's on my YouTube channel, and I've said this before. I don't know, you can probably search for it, Factorio Wave Defense. I think it's about 3 hours long, and in the end, I'm standing in the top corner of the map where they spawn with a double or triple row of flamethrower turrets. Just as soon as they spawn in, they're dead. The whole place on fire constantly. So it had problems as well, but it was a lot more challenging than what we have currently. What we have currently is, we beat it in, 2 hours with no failures and no practice and no nothing. And I can't say I was doing anything terribly important at the time. So I was too busy looking at 18 and going, oh, look, this is shiny and new, and oh, look, that's shiny and new, and oh, this sounds different, and yeah. So, yeah, Clonan's gone and tweaked everything again. Consequent of the change is the upgrade price and the bounties need to be rebalanced, which was actually easier since the number of spawners and worms is way more predictable than the number of biters. So then he had the next problem, which is something that I noticed when I did the current wave defense, is the biters are set to attack the silo right in the middle of the base. And that means they're pretty much guaranteed to come in at like probably
pretty much the same location every time.
Yeah, but over the whole circumference of the base, it's like 6 locations.
Yeah, you can actually see the diagram. It's like
it's
6-7 locations.
Yeah, that's it. And if you put your defenses there and have everywhere else weak, then you're going to be fine. So he's changed that. He added an extra command to the biters' orders and tells them first to go to a random point within the base and then from there go attack the silo. Means the position where the biters intersect your defenses will be less predictable, which I love. I also really hope that this bit of code is going to get stolen by Comfy for biter battles because the
speaking of predictable. The thing is, the predictability is unique to it's not unique, universal to Factorio, and because the wave defense is just Factorio with some slightly different altered rules. It's got that limitation.
It's down to the way that the people have coded it. In Clonan's case for the wave defense and in Comfy's case for biter battles, they're coded to go for the silo right in the middle of the base. So they're going to come for just that one item. They're always going to predictably go straight, beeline for that one item. So that's where you need to put your defenses. Everywhere else can have gaps and holes and everything. It'll probably be okay. It's not a guarantee. I have seen and I have been flanked in biter battles because we just left the whole wall open because 99.9% of the time they came from every other direction except that one. And then that one time they came that direction, we got screwed. But I'd like to see people screwed over more often by adding a bit of random, which is exactly what Clonan's done to the wave defense. So yeah, great improvements here. And then more wave power, same wave size. So this was a fault of the way he implemented the code, or the way he limited the code. Another observation he made is, even though he increased the wave power, the number of biters was still being limited by the number of nearby spawners. This was due in part to me being clever with optimizations and wanting not to make the groups too big. In short, the spawning would look something like this. Determine the wave power. Determine how many spawners we spawn from. For each spawner, pick a random number of biters to spawn, between 20 and 30. Spawn the biters, remove their cost from the wave power. Once we've gone through all the spawners, we're done, even if there's a lot of wave power left over. The problem here, we're constrained by the spawner count and the unit count. Even if the wave points was 10 times higher, the logic could just decide to spawn 50 small biters from 4 bases and call it done. So he was clever and removed all the complicated logic and made it nice and simple. Simple always works. Determine the wave power. Decide how many spawners to spawn from. Divide the power by the spawners we have. Keep spawning units and spawners until the wave power is used up. So now you go from 50 small biters to 500 small biters, which is still scary.
A few more?
It's 500 small biters, even though they're dead in a couple of shots with an SMG. 500 of them showing up is bloody scary.
Oh yeah, it's even though they don't take much to go down, just as soon as you add volume to it, you got a bit of a problem.
Yeah, if you want to see like scary biters, go look at the Zomtorio mod. Zomtorio mod increases the number of biters by a factor of 10, but decreases their hit points by a factor of 10, and also makes them slow like zombies. And it's okay. First off, it's going to kill your game because it uses so much UPS. I apologize, but it's still great to look at. Secondly, it's scary. It's really scary. You could outrun them even with an SMG running backwards, shooting like through mud and slime and like, I don't know, water even.
And the guts of the previous ones you've slain.
Yeah, but the problem is there are so many of them coming from every direction. It's a matter of time before you're screwed. And not to mention, you just go through so much ammo. Yeah. Zomtorio, I recommend looking at some stage. There again, that's the one I do have a video on the channel if you're interested. But yeah, I'm really glad that we get bigger waves. On top of that, he added an infinite map option. So he's had this requested a few times because the wave defense was on a limited island, and now it'll be an infinite map, which is I don't know what to say about that one.
I don't know what to say about that either. Because just, again, my interpretation is tower defense, not just a normal Factorio map with different rules. It's no longer really wave defense. It's just
a tower defense, a wave defense is to last as long as possible. And I was like, is it King of the Hill?
It's not even really King of the Hill.
No, it's like, I don't know what to call this. It's definitely not a wave defense because you don't get points from beating the wave. The only way you get points is being offensive and going out and taking out spawners and biters, which you're going to have to do for resources sooner or later. And yeah, I don't know what to call this. Look, don't get me wrong. I'm glad it's changed. It's hopefully improved. It's the old wave defense was not good. The new wave defense is not much better. I don't know where to go.
Maybe someone will do it. Or someone has already done a tower defense type map already. Isn't there a fish one?
Yeah, the fish defender. So Comfy, again, the rulers of making great scenarios, have a tower defense called Fish Defender, which is shaped. The map is shaped in the shape of a giant fish, and the biters attack over the narrowest tail section, and you need to defend that spot no matter what. You get coins from every kill, but you can't build an infinite amount of towers. The only way you can build towers is by buying them, and it adds to your cap. So you can buy one extra tower, one extra, gun, one extra laser, one extra fire, whatever it happens to be. And each one costs dramatically more money than the previous one did, which means you need to survive through more and more waves to get the money up. And I've seen players driving around in no man's land in tanks, just killing waves of biters. But eventually, the packs get so large, and the biters go. I think the biters even. I'm not sure if in this one they do, but I have a feeling that they do go past 100% of evolution. At which point they just get buffs on their buffs, and your tanks die real quick.
Yeah, they're not actually that robust.
Everything dies really quick. But yeah, like you've got a whole map to explore. Out the defenses in the east. You got a whole map to explore to your west. I don't think there's any biters to the west.
I don't think so, from memory.
No, I don't think so either. So there's nothing stopping you expanding and capturing the whole map and exploiting all the resources. And yeah, you've just got to hope that somebody holds the line. And it's really designed for multiplayer. It really, really is. You need 10 players, 5 players at minimum, because the map is big. The map is massive. It takes a long time to walk around and get anything done. But it's what I call a proper wave defense. It's really hard. So yeah, that's probably a good direction for Factorio to head for their wave defense.
It gives a little bit of something interesting.
Yeah, but like I said, the original one was bad. This one's better, but I don't think it's a wave defense anymore.
Well, the original one was passable as a legitimate wave defense or tower defense type, and then it just sort of...
The original was really a wave defense. It really, really was. They had preset waves that were going to come. You get a warning, 30 seconds before the next wave starts. It really, really was a wave defense. Not so much of a tower defense, because you can't force the biters to path. They'll just go through whatever they feel like. Actually,
that's true.
Technically, now you can force them to path.
One thing I'd actually like to see is a PvP tower defense, like some of those Warcraft 3 TD.
I would too.
I'd like to see that.
So yeah, if you want to knock together a scenario any weekend you feel like it, anybody who's watching, including the devs, by all means, just give me and Mojo a call, and we'll happily stream it one weekend and give it a good test run, live on the internet so everybody can watch. Yeah, look, I'd love to see the old school versus tower defenses. Either where your towers can shoot the other player's towers and vice versa, or even what's the one I used to play?
You'd have separated columns, and each player would buy an attack, which then cascades down the next player's column.
Yeah, that's. I'm trying to think of the Warcraft 3 one I used to play all the time. Which was, you could spend your money on your upgrades, or you could spend your money throwing waves.
Throwing waves, throwing waves of enemy. Yeah, I played one. It had like 8 or 10 vertical columns, and it always sent whatever you attacked. It always sent it down the next column, assuming there was a player there.
I can't remember. It's been that long since Warcraft 3 Tower Defenses.
A picture of it.
The weird shit Mojo has in his hard drive. Just accept it and move on. Anyway, speaking of moving on, we have the next scenario. We have the Rocket Rush. Now, the Rocket Rush it's a speedrunner's dream. Okay,
Does sound interesting.
He added a new scenario. Adding a new scenario at this point of development is a surprise to be sure, but hopefully a welcome one. The concept is you're on the space platform and you're preparing to land on the surface. Once on the planet, you need to launch a rocket as fast as possible. You start with all technologies unlocked and some money to buy starting equipment. Once you and your friends are prepared, you step on the platform and you get dumped on the planet. And that's pretty much it. You get teleported to the surface, you play the game as usual. We can afford to add this scenario because it's so small in scope and simple. And it took less time to make this scenario from scratch than updating what we already have. Maybe it's not the best thing since sliced bread, but I'm hoping that my small investment of a few weekends will at least give some players a few more hours of enjoyment. And I've got to say, like I said, this is a speedrunner's dream. It's like you can have X amount of coins to spend on whatever you want in the way of starting equipment. You have all the technology unlocked, so it's literally how long does it take you to get to 1,000 rocket parts? And the limiting factor is basically you. So this is one I'm definitely going to be having a look at. Maybe even doing.
It'll be interesting to see what comes of it too when speedrunning gets into it, as you say.
Yeah, I have a feeling this might even get added to the official speedrun categories. Again, like I have no decisions there. Anti-Elite and Nephrons run the speedrun category for Factorio. But I can see this one has a possibility of actually getting listed on the categories. Even then, I would probably do one myself, whether it was listed or not, because it looks interesting. It looks like a real challenge, or a real interesting challenge. And it should be reasonably quick, because if speedrunners can do all the research and launch a rocket in like 3 hours nowadays, if I don't have to do the research, in theory, I could just launch a rocket in 3 hours or less, hopefully. Which also makes it a fairly shorter game. So yeah, this is definitely one I'll be checking out. Next off, we have damage effect filtering. So the classic problem, we optimize the system so it's 5 times faster, and then we used it 5 times more. This is also the case with all your UPS. Your UPS is always gone because they optimized Factorio, so you got an extra 30% UPS. So the very next thing you did was build 30% bigger. In this case of the flamethrowers and particles again. In 18 we added the damage effect for enemies, and we generally like the way it looks. However, when this was combined with flamethrowers, we encountered some problems, and this video explains it perfectly. Firstly, you might say it doesn't make sense a biter body will spurt blood. And I would agree. Secondly, you might say that's a lot of blood, and I would agree with that too. Yeah,
That seems a reasonable amount of blood given the size of the biter.
Well, it's a really, really zoomed in behemoth. They
are significant biters, the behemoth.
Look, I've got category 8, 9 behemoth biters, which are like they're the size of a rocket silo, to be honest.
Yeah.
And those I do expect to spit out a lot of blood. But yeah, the biggest problem they had is the way fire damage works. They do a small amount of damage every single tick.
Damage over time.
Yeah, it's damage over time. And then the particles would get fired off every single tick as well, which equals a lot of blood. So basically, there was a couple of fixes. First off, RCD has gone and killed. This is interesting. Is it 2/3 of a bird with 1 stone, or 2 out of 3 birds with 1 stone.
Or is it 2 or 3 birds with 1 stone?
Yeah,
I'm
not sure. We'll leave that there. And adds damage type filtering to the entity damaged and entity died trigger effects. This means our immediate problem for body burning binders that we can just filter the damage effect not to occur if the damage type is fire, which solves it perfectly. The longer the benefits are, long-term benefits are even greater. We now have the capacity, for instance, to make custom dying effects for being run over or damaged by laser or dying by poison. So coming to a game screen near you is a special effect for your character each time you get run over by a train, because that needs to be the first one added. So yeah, on top of that, so that's not half the problem. They still had 14,000 damage events still going to cause a problem. In other cases, big part of this comes from the fire sticker, which applies damage every single tick. Since it lives for 30 seconds, that's 1,800 damage effects. So an easy change Priscilla has done is added a damage interval to the sticker, so damage is only applied every N ticks. For now, we've set the fire sticker to do 10 times the damage, but only every 10 ticks, reducing the number of total events. The sticker from 1800 down to 180, which is a lot more reasonable. They do add a note, changing the frequency can also affect the damage balancing, as the resistance system in Factorio has an absolute reduction and a percentage reduction. In our case, the enemies affected by the fire sticker had no absolute fire resistance, so the result is the same. But in modded Factorio, that's going to affect flamethrowers overall. So all the mods are going to get an update. But yeah, and lastly, they say all the changes you should see here should be released soon. We're now in the rhythm of doing one release every week, typically on a Tuesday, and everything you see here is pretty much done.
Where have I heard that before? I feel like I've heard that before somewhere.
Yeah, we've heard things like this before. It's definitely a rumor. And I have 2 things to say that. So it's 7 months, 2 days, 18 hours, 15 minutes, 21 seconds till 1.0 comes out. So that's 7
It's very
times
specific.
4. Yeah, it might be hard-coded in my Discord with a command.
I see.
So that's 28 weeks, at least, of from now to 1.0, which actually doesn't sound nearly that far away when you say 28 weeks rather than 7 months. Which means, in theory, we might possibly get 28 other releases of Factorio in that time, if they're in the habit of doing one release every week. You know, with a hot patch. I think we had this week just gone. Because things were broken. And bonus points to anybody that can name this particular wave defense from Warcraft 3.
You got my picture?
I got your picture. Yeah, I've got your picture. I've been looking at it. I'm like, I don't remember.
I mean, it kind of gives it away because it's in the name is right there on the scorecard.
What? Quad
On the
circle.
right-hand side.
No, I never played that one.
It was a fun one. It wasn't the one I was thinking of, but it's another fun one. That one, it's 4-player, up to 4-player one, 1 to 4, and you have 4 circles where the enemies go round in a full circle.
See,
3 times.
Then
they go into the portal.
I didn't mind Warcraft 3 hero defense. Oh no, tower defenses. I really didn't like the hero defense. But I did like the combination defenses. So you built towers, and then you had your super strong hero that you could use to plug holes. And that's what Factorio really has. It really has the engineer that, you know, can shoot all these different weapons, can get armor, can get upgrades, can get, you know, personalized defenses and legs and shields and who knows what to plug holes. And I really think that either somebody needs to go do it, or maybe the devs need to go back, and they've been playing World of Warcraft and calling it work time. Maybe they need to go take a step back and go back to Warcraft, War 3, pull out some of the old tower defenses, give them a whirl, and go, what ideas can we borrow for Factorio and make a decent combination tower defense. Because, like, same as they've done here, like, the towers are up on a cliff. Now, that doesn't matter because the creepers just had a pre-plotted area to walk on. They didn't attack the towers. But, you know, you can do the same with Factorio. You could have a pre-plotted out, this is where the biters walk, with a cliff that the biters can't then attack the towers, and so on and so forth. Oh, gosh.
I forgot I had that one.
That's Command and Conquer, isn't it?
Yes.
Oh, wow. We used to play these games, and this was high-resolution graphics at the time, just for the record.
Yeah, this was cutting edge at one point in time.
Is that Command and Conquer or Red Alert?
No, plain old Command and Conquer.
Oh, wow.
320 by 200. I think it was 320 by 240 or something.
And the sad thing is, those towers are called a nod tower, aren't they?
Obelisk.
Obelisk. Okay. But
They became the direct equivalent of a Tesla coil.
Yeah, I remember the Tesla coil from the other ones. And that's a flamethrower tank, and that's an artillery up the top, and that's an infantry, and I don't know what the building on the left is. And AGT.
Advanced Guard Tower, which is a rocket guard tower.
Okay, alright, nah. I played Nod, so there you go.
Yeah, because of the obelisk, basically.
No, because when we went to buy it at the store, back when you had to go to a store to buy your games, they came on a CD. There were two discs. There was the GDI edition and the Nod edition, and it didn't matter which disc you used to install. The only limitation was all the cutscenes were only on one disc or the other, and it turns out...
What dodgy place only gave you one disc?
Well, it turns out one of the people that worked at the store had borrowed the GDI disc, and we bought it on the weekend, and they weren't on, so we took home the last copy, and we're stuck playing Nod all weekend.
I see.
So that's why they're my favorite, just because they were the first one I played. I'd started their campaign, I was finishing their campaign before I was going back to the other campaign, which was not how the storyline was written. It was actually written the other way around.
They did go to a dodgy store where it only gave you one of the two seats.
Oh no, we went back and picked up the other CD on Monday.
Okay.
But yeah, no, somebody had borrowed the game off the shelf and left the box there, and had just borrowed one of the two discs.
Just borrowed the CD straight out of the box.
Yeah. So yeah, look, Factorio has such a potential when it comes to tower defenses and that sort of stuff, and
It really does.
I'd really like to see somebody to put in the effort to code up something that was really, really good. Because like Warcraft 3 as a game did not do well at all.
No, it didn't.
But the custom campaigns have led to, it's led to whole different spin-off games from what was a custom map. Along with, the whole tower defense genre really blew up with Warcraft 3.
Admittedly, in saying that before, some people would argue it was amazing. I thought it was 6 out of 10 at the time. It's like the remaster one, it's 6 out of 10, notwithstanding all the other. But yeah, it was the custom games which made it.
It was the custom games that made it, and its biggest fault, in my personal opinion, is we had, if I open these back up, we had Command & Conquer, which had a unit limit of, I don't know, maybe you get 30 tanks on the screen at once.
For all intents and purposes, it was only limited by a system. System performance. You could just keep spawning units.
No, they had a hard cap from memory.
Oh, something stupid though. It's 500. Your game would slow to a crawl long before you actually hit.
Yeah, I never had the slow to a crawl. Actually, you're right. I think it was a map wide of 500, and it was a per player of 200 or something like that. Because we'd hit the unit cap all the time, and it's get to the unit cap as fast as possible, then go in and attack the other player because you have the best chance.
But that was Warcraft 2 had that because it had a hard cap on how many not so much how many farms you could build, but how much capacity the farms would give, which I think was still. But you can only select 9 units. That was the other thing with Warcraft, was you could always only ever select a minimum number. Like Warcraft 1, you can only select 4 units. Then they made it 9 in Warcraft 2, and then 12 or 16 or whatever in Warcraft 3.
Well, Warcraft 3 had a food limit of 90. and not all units would use one food. And that's what really did it
Yeah,
for me.
a lot of
It
the
was
super units would use 2 or 3.
2 or 3, and your hero might use 4 or 5, and
Yeah.
we went from a stage where every single game was coming out and the unit cap was getting bigger because the computers were getting bigger and better. And I think I was playing Cossacks, I want to say. Maybe. At the time, just before Warcraft 3 came out. And I think our unit cap was like 10,000 units. And then we went back to 90, and I'm just like, nope, can't do it.
Yeah.
Can't do it. Just
It's
nope.
funny, actually. You say that. Some friends and I, we had a Total Annihilation mod which changed the unit cap to 5,000 units.
Yeah, that's another one. Like, TA was 1,000 per side or something.
TA was like, just go nuts.
Yeah.
I think the base cap was like 500.
I think it was 1,000 per side.
I don't remember now. I just remember that we had the 5. I remember that it wasn't hard to hit it, even, well, admittedly. If you just had like 10 factories churning out flashes, you would hit it pretty quickly.
Oh, look, it's one of those things that, like, you know, when you hit the unit cap, that's the time you know you're done, you're ready to attack. And before that, you're just building up.
Yeah,
and
building up flashes.
Yeah, it was just, that's how RTS games were going. They're going for bigger and better. And even modern games now, a lot of times they're going for bigger and better. And then Warcraft 3 came out and it's like, no. 90. And it's 90 food, not 90 units. It's probably closer to like 30 units, just so you know.
To be fair, this one thing Warcraft 3 was forced you to be actually tactical instead of using swarm tactics which you read learn all those other.
It was a tactical game rather than a strategy game. So there were technically two different genres, but it was marketed and launched as a real-time strategy game when it's really a real-time tactical game. And actually, I was playing Cossacks 1, I want to say, and Cossacks 2 did the same. They went tactical rather than strategic. And again, same story, I just went, nope, not touching it, done. But yeah, so I like tower defenses. I really want to see good tower defense in Factorio. Don't ask me to code it. I have not a hope. It's just way too much. Mojo, I hear, does scenarios, and I think we leave it there, right?
Sure.
Yeah. All right. Thank you guys for watching. Do hope you've enjoyed Friday Facts 335, talking about 50% Factorio, 50% everything else.
Other games.
Yeah, other games.
Do exist.
Yep. That used to exist a long time ago, used to eat our time as much as Factorio does now. And we'll leave it there. So thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you guys next week. Yes?
Bye-bye.
Yep.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye-bye.